Many Christians feel that the Trinity Doctrine is a fundamental Christian belief. Many churches teach that one must believe in the Trinity and that it is a necessary belief for a Christian to be a Christian. In reality, there are 5 major issues with the Trinity Doctrine and the teaching that the belief in it is fundamental to salvation. Number 1, the Trinity is never explicitly stated in the Bible. The Trinity Doctrine is an extra-biblical doctrine, which means that the Trinity is never explicitly mentioned in the Bible, and the doctrine is essentially a fan theory of sorts from Christians of the past. Number 2, if the Trinity were important, it would have been explicitly mentioned and discussed. Throughout both the New and Old Testaments, the Trinity doctrine goes almost entirely, if not entirely, undiscussed. Ancient worshippers of God clearly didn't think that the Trinity was important enough to explicitly mention and reference on a regular basis. Alternatively, there's a more logical answer, namely that the idea of the Trinity didn't even exist back then. This takes us to point number 3. Number 3, the Trinity didn't become a mainstream doctrine until the Council of Nicaea during the 4th century. Prior to the Council of Nicaea, Christians had been fighting over different thoughts on the nature of God, the nature of Jesus, the nature of the Messiah, and of their connection to each other. The Trinity is absent from the Old and New Testaments because the doctrine was not a mainstream belief up until the 4th century. Number 4, the Bible keeps things simple. The Trinity is complicated. The Bible takes complicated ideas, concepts, and events and simplifies them so that the common man can understand them. An example of this is the 6 days of creation. The actual process of creation was certainly more complicated, but the Bible simplified it for the reader. The Trinity doctrine is an inherently complicated doctrine that the average man cannot understand. Quite a few teachers of the Trinity doctrine even say that you don't have to understand the Trinity in order to believe in it. Would our loving God teach a complicated doctrine that the average man can't even understand? And lastly, number 5, even if it is true, even if the Trinity is real, belief in it is not required for salvation. In order to get saved, we have to treat others the way we want to be treated, as stated at Matthew 25, verses 31 through 46, for example, among other scriptures. Belief in the Trinity is not at all required for salvation. In fact, belief in the Trinity is wholly unnecessary. If the Trinity doctrine is real, those who don't believe in it will simply be educated and taught the doctrine when they make it into God's kingdom in the future. But belief in it in this life is clearly unnecessary.